You're listening to Superpowers of the Soul on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that elevates superpowers to the divine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Jennifer Urezzio, superpower expert and founder of Soul Language, and this is Superpowers of the Soul. And today I'm here with Trista Haggerty, and the topic is having a conscious mind and heart. Welcome, Trista. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here. So, we start with the kind of standard, in quotes, question. What do you consider the superpower of your soul?
Well, I gave this question a lot of thought, and every time I came up with an answer, I then dove deeper and would find another answer. And at first I work a lot with the divine feminine. I was like, yeah, it's really my superpower is to bring that balance with the masculine through the feminine. But when I really dove deeper, I realized that it was the faith and the flexible mind and my trust in my intuition that has really been the foundational force, I would say, or the superpower that has allowed me to walk this path for many, many years and has really been what brought me onto the path of working with the divine feminine.
Yeah, so often when people answer that question, especially master healers, right, they go first for, being of service for their superpower. But that superpower for the soul is really for us, just like our sacred purpose. It's first for us to experience and then offer that to others. And I think so often people of service, we go outside to help rather than going, okay, wait, let's see how really this supports me in a profound way. So I loved what you had to say. So on that kind of theme, what do you consider your sacred purpose? My sacred purpose is to alleviate suffering through connection. That's going to start at home first, and then I move outside of myself. So what do you consider your sacred purpose?
Well, I help people to reclaim and reconnect with their power. I would say that is one of my main purposes. It's something that I have had to do for myself throughout my life. I'd encounter situations and I started asking the question, what is this situation asking of me? Because I find myself in relationships or situations that I felt a lot of dis-ease and felt that I was in a position of compromising myself. And so I had to work through a lot of those situations. And when I look back, I really realized that all of those situations were opportunities for me to reclaim my power. And in this day and age, not to get political, but when we look at what is going on specifically in our country, but also throughout the world, it really necessitates a time for everyone to reclaim their power that we have so often given over to almost every major institution. To reclaim that power, to know that we are in charge of creating our lives. We have the ability to create our lives in such magnificent ways, and as a result, eventually create a whole new world here, a whole new experience on the planet.
Yeah, so often people, think that the first step of that, reclaiming is an external, and it's really an internal step first. And I always work with divine intelligence to do that. And it sounds like this, everyone, in case you want to do it. Divine intelligence, I call back all the power that I gave away, consciously or unconsciously, to another, to a situation, to a thought, or to belief. I call it back with divine love, wisdom, and grace. I bless all those involved, and so be it. And I think so often people, in our circles of consciousness, we talk about giving this power away, but you really can't. It's just how you're focusing that power. No one really can take your power away unless, they're physically harming you or, threatening your life. Those are extreme. But So I love this theme that you're talking about here. So how has that, your own journey, how has it reflected in your sacred, in your work?
Well, I do a lot of what I call sacred womb and heart work. And this isn't work just for women, it's also for men, because men, they do have an energetic womb, that I call it. And it's an area in our bodies where we most often will establish these, cords with other people that we're in relationship. In more traditional terms, codependent relationships, a place where we establish these cords and kind of give away our power, or sometimes take power, or whatever, in this kind of mutual exchange. But it's also an area where we hold a lot of unresolved emotions in our bodies. And it's for times in our lives where maybe we haven't found our voice to really be able to express what it is we need or what it is that we're feeling. It all gets held in that area. And so that's a lot of the work that I do. And I do this in a number of different ways. I work with people over the phone, meditations. I also take people on sacred journeys to the places on the earth that I call the thin places. This is where heaven and earth meet, and the veil is very thin. So you experience the magic that is on the other side of the veil. And this really helps people to open up and have a completely different experience and awareness of both themselves and the earth. And then I also, my husband and I run a retreat and education center. I bring people here and help facilitate that healing as well, so that people can really kind of anchor themselves, anchor their spirit down deep into their bodies, and essentially the earth, and so that they're creating their lives from their whole self.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, that conscious mind and heart after our break here. But before we go to break, my last question for you is, what has been a common theme that your soul has shared with you?
It's really about healing duality and separation. I think if any astrologer looked at my chart, which I've worked with a few and had different astrology readings, and every time when I look at my chart, it reveals all these opposites, planets that are in opposite position from one another. And I've experienced that so much in my life, kind of extreme opposites. And it's brought me to this place of, how do I heal the duality? How do I heal the separation and experience oneness within the duality? Every time something is manifested, it comes from a place of oneness. We all come from a place of oneness. But once anything is manifested on the physical plane, it reveals itself in duality. And so that has showed up in my life in so many different ways, whether it's having a partner that's extremely different than I am, or children who are very opposite from one another. It's just shown up in my life in so many ways, and it's been my personal task at hand, so to speak.
Beautiful. Well, everyone, you've been listening to me, Jennifer Urezzio, and this is the Superpowers of the Soul. And I'm talking today with Trista Haggerty. Say your last name. I can't get it out.
It's Haggerty.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Urezzio. And again, you've been listening to the Superpowers of the Soul, and we're talking to Trista Haggerty. And the topic today, of course, is having a conscious mind and heart.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Well, welcome back. This is Jennifer Urezzio, and this is Superpowers of the Soul, and I'm talking today with Trista, and we're talking about having a conscious mind and heart. So, Trista, what does conscious mind and heart mean to you personally?
Well, to me personally, it has a lot to do with awareness, slowing yourself down so that you are aware of those tiny moments. A lot of my students have heard me say over and over again that the power of transformation lays in the split-second moments when we can be incredibly present in those tiny moments where where the patterns of discomfort or the patterns of struggle are recurring over and over again. Oftentimes with a conversation with a loved one or or a friend or a boss or something where you walk away from that experience having the same type of feeling. And so in that split-second moment of being able to be present, being able to shift into your heart, have compassion for yourself, and to be able to, well, it's almost like taking a leap of faith, or it's like standing on the edge of a cliff, because in that moment, when you're really present, you're going to choose to have a different response. And it does require a leap of faith. And so when you have that, when you're so present in that moment and you choose to respond differently, then everything about that pattern changes and dissolves and transformation happens.
Can you give us a brief exercise? I always tell them to practice the pause. Okay, let's pause. Do you want to respond through pattern, or do you want to respond through the consciousness of love? Can you give maybe or share a tip that you would instruct one of your students to kind of begin to have that conscious mind and heart?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'll start one with a funny one that I always tell my students, that when you're trying to change a very old pattern, a pattern is a habit, and it's very difficult to break. And so if we're having a conversation with somebody and all of a sudden we see and we hear and we feel this conversation going a certain way where we usually get kind of tripped up, I always say, no one's going to object if you say, I need to go to the bathroom. No one's going to object to that. And I said, go to the bathroom, gather your thoughts, and really give yourself the time to think about how you want to respond. That's a tool. But the other is, it's the womb and heart connection. I find that a lot of the patterns that we find ourselves in that aren't in alignment with who we really are patterns and responses that we have in life that come more from the intellectual realm, responding in a way that we feel like we need to respond, or that we should respond, or responding in a way that is acceptable to society. And what it does, it kind of lifts us away from where our truth lives, which is buried in our womb. And so the simple gesture of putting your left hand over your womb area, your pelvis, and your right hand over on your heart as a way to connect that and to just ask, what is my truth in this moment? That really helps a lot in breaking that pattern, whatever that is for you, and to be able to speak from your deepest truth.
I love that. For years, I've told clients, to take their left hand and put it, their right hand to put it on their left shoulder, and then ask that question, really allowing them to kind of not separate, but really participate only in their own energy via their heart. So I love this adding of the womb portion to that. Where do you feel the greatest area of kind of development in creating a conscious mind and heart is at the moment?
Well, I really feel it is with the womb. When we look back over the past 2,000 years, we have been heavily, heavily influenced in regards to how we view, especially for women, how we view personal power, feminine power, and how we view sexuality. We've been influenced by religious organizations in so many different ways that has, I believe, has led us to disconnect from that area of our bodies. So I find that doing the womb work is just one of the more powerful things that we can do at this point in time.
Beautiful. I think, that when you were talking, I was like, of course, the word for hysteria, was drawn from that womb area. And, the old diagnosis was that they were having, female problems and they were becoming hysterical, right? And it's
Right.
just, it's weird how, something so fundamentally connecting can be twisted into deconnection. If a woman is, or, a man wants to get in touch with that energetic womb, what would be something that they could start off doing right here, right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Doing guided meditation is very helpful to help a person kind of descend into the consciousness that is held in the womb. It's also connected with our wild self, our wild woman, or our wild masculine, the kind of the warrioress and the warrior within. And I find getting connected to nature and the wildness of nature really helps. So those are probably the two of the most immediate things that I can think of that could really support that.
Beautiful. I have a lot of warriors, female warriors in my community. I mean, there's several soul languages that are warrior in nature. And so what I hear you saying is reestablishing that connection with the womb and healing any, pain or unconsciousness in that area could really transform them into being more conscious warriors. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is accurate. And one of the things that I see that is just part of our human nature is that when something has been out of balance, we tend to, when we're opening up that other part of ourselves, like the wild woman, we tend to go to an extreme before balance is sought. And so if you have been kind of in the good girl persona, or what I call the daughter of the patriarch, and then you begin to awaken that wild feminine part of yourself, oftentimes you'll experience the ferociousness. You'll experience your voice, and you'll experience the anger and the rage and everything that goes with that, like you would have from a wild animal that's been caged. But then to bring balance to that, because I do feel that it is easy to get stuck in that, because we're used to seeing power as being so big. And so, we've been trained really in our world to see power as a force that overpowers others. And so even for women who are on the path of discovering their feminine power, you don't want to stop right there, because that is really just part of the path. When you have felt that you've exercised your voice enough and that muscle has become strong, and then you begin bringing that more into the heart and healing the anger and healing the rage and all the feelings that come with having been that part of ourselves being banished or suppressed, then we find, I believe, the true power of the feminine, which is the ability to surrender to a greater power, and the ability to be vulnerable, the ability to let go and open ourselves up to be a vessel, and allowing the power of the feminine to come through us. And it's a very, very different type of power than what we are used to. And it's so incredibly disarming that even without speaking words, just holding and being that divine feminine in relationship with other people, it can literally drop that protection and that hardness and the kind of that out of balance masculine that we've all been subjected to, that holds things in a little bit more of a rigid way. And this has been my personal experience. It will literally just dissolve before your eyes.
And that's why it's so important when we're going through these huge transitions to seek out a guide and support. I've experienced that power. The way I would put it is that it feels like it's done almost. It feels like if you just put out your hand, I have this, I've never been big into sports, but I have great reflexes. So if something drops, I just put out my hand and it kind of falls into it. And that's what I've experienced that feminine power as, is in, oh, it's just there. And it becomes this kind of wonderful, literally translating, ask and it is given, without any pushing or pulling. It just seems to unfold. So thank you so much for this amazing topic today. Before we wrap up, please let people know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you. I have a website. It's tristahaggerty.com. I also have a website, Sacred Mountain Tours, where I list any tours that I'm doing, which I have one coming up in a month, which is going to France. And that's really the best way to get a hold of me, is through either of those two websites.
Beautiful. And so before I ask this last question again, just one more time, how do they get in touch with you?
TristaHaggerty.com or SacredMountainTours.com.
Beautiful. So if you were a refrigerator magnet on Universe, Tree, Bob, God, Divine, whatever you call that refrigerator, what would it say?
Be love.
Beautiful. Wow, thank you so much for your time and your amazingness today. I really enjoyed our conversation. And everyone that's been listening, if you like what you heard, you can connect with me and all of the other experts in the Superpower net at superpowerexperts.com/the net. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be here next week. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz today.